Hello and good evening. I'm Ebrahim Fakir and I am the facilitator of this session. Welcome to this session, the 29th time of the Writer edition, called The Literature of Lived Experience. That's the title of this session. Now, generally, in my work as a researcher, or some might call it political analyst, we often look at social and political indicators, statistics, data, and so on. And we often look at questions of reconciliation, solidarity, or that very silly thing called social cohesion to understand the state of society that we are in. Today, I'm playing a slightly different role. My postgraduate degree, by the way, is in English literature. And so, thanks to the organizers of the Time of the Right, the curator, the director, all of the staff for pulling me back from what I would call a day job to something that is actually work, something that's my passion, something that I like, because this is what I studied after all. So it's a privilege today for me to be joined by two authors, Thobeka Yose, firstly, and secondly, Melinda Ferguson, both of who've produced books of incredible grit, but also incredible beauty. A little bit of grief, a little bit of love, a little bit of romance, and a little bit of reconciliation of self. So, the two authors who I think have produced what I would call an archive of survival. They've managed to coordinate loss with startling, though quite different cartographies and very different geographies. In Thobeka's book, Silence in My Heart, which is this, I'm sure you can all see it. Uh, and so Tobeka's Silence in My Heart, and Melinda's Swift, which is so hot off the press that I actually had to read it electronically, simply because there wasn't sufficient time to get it to me in physical copy. And by the way, it's an incredible privilege to be the first person to be talking publicly about Melinda Ferguson's book Swift. Its official launch is only going to be on a Thursday, I believe. And so it's really incredible. Thanks, Melinda, for joining us, and thanks to Becca. Uh, and you know, they're very different books. Obviously, they quite similar in some ways. Some people might say they're the same story, but they're very different experiences, and you'll hear why as we go along. I think in Tobeka's Silence of My Heart, in Silence My Heart Speaks, we'll see a very slow and deliberate transition from what I would call a socially enforced silence to what is a reclaimed agency. It's actually a study in how personal history, if left unexamined, can become quite a weight, and how speaking about it is a prerequisite for both civic but also a personal and private presence. In contrast, Melinda Swift, like a lot of her other work, is quite visceral. It's almost a story told in real time. There's a real time anatomy of shock. It's written in the immediate wake of very sudden loss. It doesn't have the luxury of hindsight that Tobacco's has. And it's almost like a breath by breath account of where the survival of a literal bird, a swift, by the way, becomes the structural scaffold for her own survival, for the survival of herself. So, together, I think these works are asking us, how does the private labor of grief and longing and reconciliation of self, how does that inform our public capacity for resilience? And what's the role of the independent voice? Since both of these books are actually published not by one of the big four or five publishers, but what is the role of this independent voice in a literary landscape that's actually increasingly searching for some kind of authenticity? So you'll find in Thobeka's Silence, in Silence My Heart Speaks, a narrative that breached through the gaps of what was previously left unsaid. I think it's a work of quite radical, it's quiet, but it's radical. And where there's an act of speaking, of naming a trauma, of navigating the complexities of modern motherhood, even, it becomes an act of reclamation. And Melinda's, on the other hand, is a work what I would call kinetic grief. It's raw, it's urgent, it's written with sort of some degree of anxiety, but there's also a velocity of a bird in flight. It captures the absurdity of what I would call a mythical nature of sudden loss, where the survival of this tiny, fragile creature is the scaffolding of her own survival. And together, these provide us and invite us, I think, to consider how we hold a language of what some might think is unspeakable. And both of them chronicle in their books some very unspeakable acts, something we wouldn't wish to be visited on any of us. And so, what happens to the self when that silence is finally broken is what we hear in these two books. Both deal with some archaeology of grief. Their textures are very different. Yours is slow, it's steady, it exhumes a long buried set of silences. Melinda's is obviously very high velocity, it's quite live wire. It's a processing of grief that's almost immediate. And I think we're living in a moment in South Africa where women are refusing to be quiet about the things that have nearly destroyed them. They, in doing so, are producing and crafting a literature of the highest order. And the two books we're celebrating today could not be more different in their texture or their journeys. And one arrives with the swift, it's exhilarating energy of a bird in flight. The other carries the weight of a history, of things past, of long silences, and so on. And so Melinda obviously needs little introduction to South African readers. She's built a body of work over 2 decades, I think, that has consistently gone where others have feared to tread, into addiction, scandal, the raw corners of personal reckoning. This new novel of hers is a little bit different. It has all of that, but it's a love story in a way. It's an elegy. It's written in the wake of losing her soul mate, I would call it, or soulmate. And it's about grief, it's about flight, and what it means to still be here. Thobeka's in Silence My Heart Speaks came last year. It has already won the Canex Prize, I think a very prestigious literature prize for publishing in Africa. And it really deals with childhood trauma, growth from that trauma through the early loss of her beloved, through to single parenthood, accompanying a child through their own journey of self discovery and difficulty, I might add. But what unites them, as Thobeka writes herself in her book, I show my scars now with pride because I survived. This is me owning the story, all of it, the good and the bad. And Melinda does pretty much the same, chronicling very difficult, very tough conversations. And that's exactly what memoirs do. It's the act of courage. And Melinda and both Melinda and Thobeka do this in droves. So I want to ask both of you, after that fairly extended introduction, but I thought it was important to contextualize that both of your books are dealing with grief, love, loss, a little bit of romance, which I'll come to in a way. In some ways, even the loss of a version of yourself, a longing also in some ways, some regret, some recovery. And I want to ask both of you, were you writing towards something? Melinda, were you writing away from something or were you coming to yourself again? Thobeka, I would ask you the same thing. Were you trying to write away from that past? Were you trying to reconcile yourself to something? Let's start with you, Thobeka.
Hi, Ebrahim. Hi, Melinda. I'm so happy to be here with you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Very well.
I think I grew up carrying a lot of grief or a lot of shame because of what was happening, what happened when I was growing up. I grew up from a home that was filled with abuse and alcohol abuse. My father was an alcoholic and an abuser of my mom. So as a child, I was carrying a lot of shame because what was happening at home, even though it had no language, I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was wrong, and it haunted me for all my life. I think I remember one time I was in a writing workshop and Melinda was hosting that workshop and I was there, and she asked us to, a prompt was to bring a picture of your father. Um, the way I cried in that because I was remembering what my father did to my mom and how unsafe he made me feel growing up. So I think I was writing towards getting healing from the past. I would say that I wanted to heal from what was holding me back, because I had a low self-esteem. I didn't want to be seen, and I just wanted to shake off all of that pain and grief and be free. That's what this book came with, freedom.
So basically, you think you were writing yourself away from your past. You weren't writing yourself towards something. I mean, I'd argue that may be true for the first half of the book, but the second half of the book, which we can park for a moment, is in a sense you writing towards something, right? Almost towards yourself, towards acceptance of certain things. But we'll come to that in a moment. Melinda, were you writing away from something? Or were you writing towards yourself?
Well, I don't know if you realize. So I can show you my book because it arrived. I'm really sorry that you don't have your copy, but this is literally hot off the press. May died 4 months ago today. Today, my soulmate inexplicably was dead when I managed to break into the house 4 months ago today, which is insane because I don't know whether I've been writing towards or away from something. It's just been a complete insane space of life trying to make sense of something. In the early days, his body had just been removed from the house. I remember lying on the bed, not sleeping, and just starting to write these very little notes, kind of what has happened, like in point form. And 2 weeks after he died, a weird thing happened after the bird flu. I just started writing. Whether it was away or towards, who knows? I think I was trying to make sense. And the fact that I've got it in this form so quickly since he died has given me the weirdest sense of not closure, but like it exists. This happened to me. So it's like the trauma of the thing that happened has somehow become a little square and it feels safer. So that's what I can say.
Interesting. I mean, it's also fascinating that you both know each other. I
Yeah.
was unaware that Thobeka, you were in a writing workshop facilitated by Melinda, but there was another literary person, I guess, someone who was on radio, Nancy Richards, who wrote the introduction to your book, who also fashioned a little bit, I think, of your literary sensibility, Thobeka. I mean, how did you find working with these two women who kind of in part encouraged and maybe brought you out of your shell? Is that accurate?
That's very accurate. I've known Melinda since her days in a True Love magazine. So she was, I considered her a friend, even though she did not know me.
I know you.
I'm a huge fan of Melinda's. I love her to bits. So when she moved to Cape Town, I started attending her writing workshops, because somehow in her journey, because I've been reading her ever since her books came out, I think I somehow saw a piece of myself. There's something that is deeply connecting me to her, and I am so glad our paths crossed, because she pushed me to write this book. And Nancy, on the other hand, was very encouraging. When I started attending book workshops at Women's Own Cape Town, she also encouraged me to write a book. Both these women, I know them from the literature world, and I see them as my heroes or as my idols. Both of them were so encouraging me to write the book, and for them to say that to me was just what I needed. Remember, I said I had no confidence at all. and I didn't want anyone to see me or ask anything personal. But attending, especially Melinda's workshops, opened a door, and I felt that no one was judging me in that space. If I wanted to cry about the prompt of the day, everybody would be so patient with me, comforting, and I saw family, a community, and I knew that even if I write this book, people will want to read it because of those two ladies. So I will forever be grateful to have met them.
Well, you can see obviously the kind of influence, I think, in the way in which you structure your sentences and so on. Except I would say this: you don't use the word "fuck" as liberally as Melinda has.
That's Mel's. That's
30%, Abraham and Thobeka, 30% of the fucks out. You have no idea how many there were, and I started putting it down just before it went to print.
I mean, I have no problem with it. I've used the word in a column, but that's the best I've managed. 800 word columns. I haven't done the book that you guys have done, or many books in your case, Melinda. So congrats to the two of you. I said something in the introduction about the fact that I think these books in one country, from the same country, both books from women, but who both of you have very different positionalities, sort of class-wise, in terms of origin, um, and in some ways the themes are very similar. They're about love, they're about loss. There's a bit of romance, by the way, for those who want to delve into that, and I'll read certain extracts of that romance. But it's also very different books. They share themes, but they're very different books. Does your own positionality, Tobeka, you obviously have to witness, your father being abusive to your mother. You then get taken in by an aunt and uncle. A cousin basically takes care of you at a boarding school, and she leaves. It's a very poignant description that you have of a cousin who pays for everything, including getting you new clothes, so you don't feel like a stranger. Melinda, your positionality is very different. You're white in a country like South Africa. You grow up with that privilege, but you're smoking at the age of 4. You were full blown alcoholic at the age of 13. You've walked the streets. I'm not going to chronicle that. People can read it in Smacked and elsewhere. And so you have privilege, but also you be settled with this underprivilege. But you read these two books, and the one, Thobeka, yours does deal with communal issues. It does. You often pepper things by saying, we don't talk about this in our community. For example, mental illness, or a whole bunch of other things. Like, your mother was not asked about how she was feeling after she had a bout of her mental breakdowns and so on. Melinda, yours is very different. You've had multiple breakdowns. Does your position Has your positionality shaped your narratives in any sense, Melinda?
Yeah, completely. And I mean, as you were saying that, like I was hearing, like Thobeka had this very abusive family, like she was trapped. She had to, I had, I had an alcoholic mother, which I think is our connection as well, your alcoholic father, Thobeka. But I was very aware of my whiteness as a young child, and I was very aware of the injustice and my inability to change stuff. And I think my addiction journey was a lot about blowing up my white privilege until I was home. Like, there was this kind of guilt operating in me for all the suffering that I had no control over as a white person. And then there was this kind of like rejection, rebellion, blow it all up, become a heroin and crack addict, go on the streets, like die. And then slowly there's a rebuilding of a life. And I think that our commonality is in the rebuilding of a life, Thobeka, because is both of us are, I hate the word, but survivors. And then I have this latest book where I'm like almost at the pinnacle of my success, and privilege and whatever one wants to call it in South Africa as a white person, one has to. And then my soulmate dies. And then that's like, I think you also said something about women contributing an incredible work in the South African literary landscape at the moment. And I think that is so amazingly accurate because we don't run away from our feelings. And Thobeka, all I ever did with you in those writing workshops was just scratch away all of those defenses so that you could get into the heart of what your pain was, and which is what you did beautifully in your book.
Strangely, you're talking about women and writing this stuff. There's a scene which people should go read in the book, Melinda, about you at a Belleville police station talking to a woman copper and telling her about one of the authors that you publish, Pumla Dineo, obviously a great writer and great academic, and you ask her whether she knows these two books, and I thought so strange. You're sitting there reporting a death, trying to navigate, as you call it, the bureaucracy of death. And you're telling this woman about an author that you've published.
Because she also comes from the Eastern Cape. It's like going to Europe and saying, oh, do you know my cousin in Holland because like it's in Europe, or someone in Africa. So in that absurdity of sitting and trying to my soulmate's death the day after he died, the only thing I think of was, oh, you must know Pumla Dineo. And of course it's insane that I should, and I considered it in the book because of the insanity of that question. Yeah.
Yeah. Thobeka, Melinda was chronicling how she may have had white privilege, but I mean, at some stage, she was also abandoned onto a homeless farm. Her siblings had kind of dropped her off after she'd had another bout of things. You found escape and you found refuge. Your elder brother found refuge with an uncle, I think Alfred is called. You went to your uncle and aunt, and then they facilitated a kind of safe homely space for you. You were taken to a boarding school by the very cousin, the child of that aunt and uncle. You didn't quite have the same rough and ready abandonment on the streets, right? But did that change how you structured your narrative? Did it change how you feel about life? Did you feel about how you feel about chances that you have in life?
Yeah, it did. It did. I'm so grateful for my grandfather who sent me to live with my aunt and uncle, and it is there where I realized, because they modeled the kind of life that I wanted for my family, and they welcomed me with so much warmth and love. And as a broken child, that's what I was I was yearning for that. And I'm so grateful that I got to receive it at the age of 9. By the time I was a teenager, I was already in my journey of healing, and slowly getting confidence to tell myself that one day I will let the world know who my mom is. I will talk about what happened to her, what my father did. Even though it had no language, I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was something wrong. It shouldn't have happened. And nobody deserved what my mom deserved. And I think I'm rebellious, and it surprises everyone because I'm always calm and collected. But when I decide to do something, I do it. I come from rural areas. Nobody has ever written a book. There's no person I know now. Now I know a lot of people, of course, because I'm an author, a published author. But I knew nobody who had written, especially about something that had happened to them. And I'm grateful that I was my confidence was boosted in a way that helped me not to not be ashamed to tell my story, and voice, and also break away from the pack, just tell it like it is and not be afraid what will the society think of me. We don't hang our dirty laundry, we are told, but I am that one person from my family who decided to talk. And I know that some of my siblings, or even one of my siblings that I know of, my big brother, is not happy that I wrote a book. But what was important for me was the freedom to share what was eating me up, because it was eating me up, the fact that this happened to my mom and nobody ever did anything about it. And I did something, and I'm so proud of it.
Yeah, that's so incredibly touching, and I was wondering about how siblings would react to that kind of thing, or people in the extended family for that matter. And Thobeka, I don't know if you're still with us or whether you've frozen or whatever. Melinda, I mean, I think you have chronicled over several of your own texts about how family both reacted to your, I don't know what to call it. I mean, maybe I should just say shenanigans. Let's put it that way, right? And they
But
got fed up.
creative. I mean, at least I made something out of the shenanigans. They didn't just end for Ponty. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. But I mean, how do they, Tobeka's talking about her relationship with her elder brother is not too happy about some of the stuff that's come out. Have you had the same experience?
That hasn't spoken to me for sure at least 10 years. At
Sure.
one time, he also wasn't speaking to me. I felt like when Thobeka was talking about this, I thought you should never have come to my writing workshops, because that was one thing I always told the writers, and I do carry on saying, is write as though the world is dead.
All right.
Write as though the world is dead, because the voices that interfere with truth, your truth as a memoirist, are so loud. And it's almost impossible for people to write the truth, most people. And then some people manage to skirt around that fear of family. Because if one is telling a true story about dysfunction, which is clearly in Thobeka's life and mine, the dysfunctionality of alcohol, for example, in the family. And that is what my siblings were so angry with me about, because I told the world our mother was an alcoholic. They were very ashamed. And I think possibly, I'm talking for Thobeka now, but maybe it was a similar thing of, why are you telling people that our father hit our mother or
Right.
drank, because of this
Right.
terrible stigma around. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's part of the deal to probably lose some people when you write the truth.
Yeah, it's interesting also that, I mean, it's not only you who haven't spoken to a sibling, or someone important in your life. I mean, Matt, the late Matt, the love of your life, or what you call your soulmate, had similar experience. He hadn't spoken to his sister for 3 years,
And
and his
so
ex-wife for
weird.
5 years, or something like that.
Yeah. And I suddenly thought, after he died and while I was writing the book, I thought, no wonder we were so drawn to each other, because we both had like arrested relationships with family, and we felt each other was normal. We normalized it, the two of us, but actually it was highly dysfunctional. I have to say, in my defense, I tried so many times to talk to my brother, but he won't. So at least I tried. Matt didn't. I have to. Oh, he has to back it back.
Thank Tobacco. Welcome back. We were just saying that there is another parallel. You were talking before you dropped off, and technology wasn't our friend. That your brother was not that happy with what you had written, but I don't know if you won't speak in terms. You'd kind of just spoken or dropped off, and Melinda was saying that in her case, both her and Matt have had this experience of not having to speak to a sibling for many years, and in Melinda's case, despite an attempt to do so.
You muted.
Tobacco.
Rebecca. Yeah. It
Hi,
looks like
Thobeka.
that.
So we can see her, but we don't appear to be able to hear her. But I mean, nevertheless, I wanted to go to something that's slightly happier, and that is to describe the little bit of romance. Not a little bit. I mean, there's quite a bit of romance in both of these, but they're both very striking. They're very striking descriptions of that romance. But before I do that, I want Thobeka to be able to hear us. Before I get there, because I want to ask her very directly about that. Hi, Thobeka, can you hear us? I
Oh,
don't know if
she
we're going to be able
listen.
to hear you, but she
Hang on.
appears to have frozen again. But nevertheless, I did offer and say to both of you that I will choose extracts, which I have, which I would like to read because they resonated and were poignant to me. But I wanted to give you both of you that opportunity to do so. And tell me why you chose that extract, and I'll tell you why I chose the extracts I wanted to before we come to a couple more questions. So, Melinda, I don't know if Thobeka can hear us very well. I'm going to give you the opportunity to choose that. If you've chosen the same extract I have, well, so be it. That's just how things roll.
I actually, before the session opened, I just went like this and I opened the book and it listed on chapter 30, The Bird Must Eat. And
Okay.
it's just after, it's just the day I think it's the day after I found Matt dead in the house. Are you wanting me to read it?
Yes, please.
Oh,
A short
okay.
extract.
Yes, I'm not going to read you the whole thing. It's
Yeah,
Sunday. Okay. It's Sunday. It's still dark outside. Dates have become visceral, like bruises you keep pressing to check if they're still sore. I wake up at 1:01 a.m. The house is deathly quiet. Life has been sucked out of the walls that once protected us. It's a quiet that is in peace. There's a glassy vacancy that comes with the deeper invisible chaos, a disturbance, a low hissing of death's breath. It's I don't know how many days since Matt left Earth after dying in sleep. I think he did die in sleep. I still don't know what really happened. Time no longer behaves in normal. It's melted. Like a Dali painting, it refuses to take a definite shape. I'm sure I've mentioned that already. It's sloshing out, seeping bile around the edges of my skull, like the fluid that leaked from his body when the phone rang, on and on and on. Me calling over and over again, each aborted attempt to reach him, clanging louder and louder, anxiety rising as it rang and rang and rang. One great tick. Ring, ring, ring. Ring. I look at my phone, 1:12 a.m. The numbers resemble code, like coordinates, like a key to a door I can't open, like a clue to his passwords that I still hunt. I lie in the empty bed staring at the ceiling. What did the crossover moment feel like as he slipped out of Earth's trapdoor, fell through some portal, when he whooshed into the light and escaped this dastardly world? I mean, I can carry on, but I think that was
No, to use, I think to use your own words, I think let's just call it alles klar, Commissar,
yeah.
which is something, which is the last thing, almost one of the last things you'd said. And Matt's response was trip trap, hooray, with an emoji. Now, before I get to asking you about that passage that you chose, I want to ask you a technical question, which is, you're an independent publisher, and you've published these books. Do they allow you a greater license to do what you want? I mean, I've never seen a publication in print which includes emojis. In the electronic copy I had, the emojis are there. Are they in the print copy?
Yes. And in the digital copy, they're in color.
Yeah.
In the copy, they're in color. So the Amazon ebook is in color, but on here, I couldn't get color on each of the emojis. But, I've only recently struck independence. Hey, I was with Media 24 NB publisher until August last year. And then I was with Kana for the 7-8 years before that. So it's such an amazing thing. I mean, that I am now king of my own thoughts and decisions, and I don't have teams meetings with endless people. So yeah, I think that this time I could put as many fucks as I liked in, and I could put in, and no one was telling anything. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, Thobeka's back. Thobeka, can you hear us?
Thobeka. Oh
Thobeka,
dear.
well, oh dear. If she can't, well, if she can, great. If she can't, we'll just persist and hopefully she will hear us. And I'm going to read an extract from her book, which, strangely enough, I mean,
She's nodding.
you.
She's,
Oh, she's nodding. Can you hear us?
Yes, yes, I can.
Oh, great, Rebecca. Thank you. We just read a small portion of, well, Melinda read a small portion of her own book, and let me give her a moment just to say, Melinda, why that portion?
well, it's the one I opened on, but more
Okay,
than any,
so
yeah,
random.
I think that strange twilight time that happens after death, the unexpected death, especially the sudden death. I think the sudden death it creates a whole other world, and I just felt that piece really described that kind of post feeling of what the hell just happened, and then the attempt to start processing, and that's really what that is. It's very little happens in that part, but it's about time, and about time becoming like a Dali-esque kind of painting where everything, all the edges are seeping into each other. And yeah, I enjoyed writing the piece, even though the subject matter was quite traumatizing.
Well, there are moments of tenderness, which I'm sure you did imagine, you did enjoy writing, about meeting at the airport, the first time you met, about the meeting his children, lying on the bed and taking selfies and so on. Those were fun. Those were nice to read. Tobeka, oh gosh, you disappeared
But
just as, I don't know whether this is Murphy's Law or Melinda's Law.
it's not my
Melinda,
law. You can talk about.
you're doing an awful lot of talking today, and you're doing it again on Thursday, I believe, at the launch of your book.
Yeah, I'd just like to say something about Thobeka. I'm so proud of her. I mean, I knew her when she was a broken, a woman attempting to put pieces together. And, a lot of people attend writing workshops. A lot of people want to write books, but those who do are very far and few between. Very few people actually get the book together. And so I've been so amazed and proud of her in terms of having done this book and also achieved what she's done with it.
I mean, I must say, it looks as if the lessons she learned, even in terms of literary style or literary structure, were literally struck, because the first half of the book is written in a narrative style where she is speaking in first person, she's reporting, and suddenly on page 77, there's a whole different thing. There's a third person narrator who's actually describing herself as if she's looking at herself from above. And I'm going to read a little bit of this extract for everyone, and hopefully she comes back and can tell us a little bit about it, both about the stylistic feature of the third person narrator and the sudden shift, but also this very tender moment that I'll end on, when I read it. Tobeka, are you back? Oh, great! Can you hear us? And before we lose you again, I want to give you a chance before I read an extract that I chose, for you to read an extract that you think should be important, just so that people hear from the author herself. She's frozen, I think. Again. So, Tobeka, if you grant me the liberty, I'm afraid I'm going to channel myself and try to be you, and read this portion, which really struck me both stylistically but also ends on a very tender and what I think is quite a humorous note. But anyway, it's titled Her Mother's Daughter, and it begins with a quote by Stephen Covey, which I actually want to also ask Thobeka about. She's peppered some of the pages with sign of sayings from other authors or what some people might consider pop psychology and so on. But anyway, they always related to the theme of what she's talking about. But I just wanted to ask her about that. And it was a parallel question to you, Melinda. You know, you also make a little bit about being a Leo and Matt being a Virgo, and how those star signs kind of in some ways guide or determine how you behave. But we'll come to that in a moment. Let me just read Thobeka's little extract here. So it starts off saying, humility is the mother of all virtues, courage is the father, integrity the child, and wisdom the grandchild. That's someone called Stephen R. Covey, who Thobeka cites. And then she starts the chapter saying, remember Thobeka, Nina's eldest daughter, the one who was sent away to be raised by her Aunt Victoria, Nina's sister in law. She was happy at her aunt's house, got along with her cousins and uncle. She had a very happy childhood. She did well at school. She sometimes missed her family and wondered if they ever thought about her. She dreamt of the day she would see them again. She wondered if they would come and fetch her, even though she was happy with her new family. She sometimes wanted to know what it would feel like to be raised by her mother, especially now that she was told that Nina, who is her mother, was her normal self again. She was curious to experience what stability with her mother would look like. Thobeka had felt this void inside of her that no one seemed to be able to fill. She was sometimes very emotional and cried for no apparent reason. Her aunt and uncle dismissed the behavior since they thought it was just some kind of attention seeking act. They thought she was a moody person by nature. In those days, children were seen, they were not heard. In fact, they had no voice. And as Thobeka grew older, she became rebellious, and it was difficult to raise and handle her. During her teenage years, like the other girls in the family, she was sent to a girls' boarding school where she spent most of her time, visiting home only during the school holidays. Her brother would visit once a year and buy her Christmas clothes, spend time with her so they could bond. He never took her back to Namibia with him because it was just so expensive. A journey like that needed a lot of time to prepare, especially the paperwork and all the necessary documents. This was painful to her because she missed her siblings and sometimes her mother. She wanted to see her niece and be able to hold her in her arms and show her love. Ah, well, that's not going to happen anytime soon, and she had to make peace with it. During her matric year, while she was on school holiday at her aunt's and uncle's house in Bizana, her second home, she met a young man who was a few years older than her. She met this gentleman on her way from the bus stop, where she picked up a door that was sent by her uncle on the local bus from Durban. She was carrying the door on her head. There was nothing attractive about this image. Yet, this handsome man stopped her and proceeded to lift the door off her head. She was annoyed, but then he said, who on earth lets a beautiful girl like you carry a heavy object like this? Hi, my name is Thobeka Yose. What's your name, beautiful? Thobeka Melani, she said. Sure. Thobeka, did you hear that extract which I unilaterally chose and channeled for you? I think she's frozen again.
She was here. She's here.
Oh, there
I'm
is.
like
She's back.
Oh no. Swinging. It's
Ah,
turning again. Shit.
turning
At
and
least I'm
turning.
I could swear, but
Well, you can, go for it. We are at the time of a writer. It's a literature festival. I think
I mean, I can
no
try
one's.
that piece, just if you would like me to, in a way. I mean,
Please
I,
do.
I, I found that the retelling in a weird way in third person, it became quite fairy tale like, love story like, and it became the separation as though the story then zooms out into something that has all the makings of magic, as
Yep.
in a fairy of some sorts. That's just what I mean. That small piece felt like that to me.
By the way, Mel, what is prosopagnosia?
Oh, prosopagnosia. I don't even know how to say it, but that was the word that mad German threw at me on the night we met on Tinder, and it's
Yeah.
about face blind, inability to recognize another person. It's the other word for face blindness. It's called prosopagnosia. It sounds like some Italian pasta, but it's not.
You also had to go look up the word sapiosexual.
Yeah, I mean, and that was a bit embarrassing because I should have known it.
And you know what's strange is I contrasted Thobeka's description of her third person fairy tale, like you say, quite magical description of her meeting Thobeka Yose, with yours, who meets Matt. And unfortunately, sorry to the audience, but I have to read it off my phone because the electronic copy is the only copy I could get. It's that hot off the press. And Melinda, you start off saying, as I walk through the swing doors into arrivals, I spot him immediately. It's like every love movie you've ever watched. The world stops. Everything goes quiet. We move towards each other in slow motion. The heavens ring. The angels play their harps. The light turns golden. It's you, we both say. It's you. It's a very different description of that. But I mean, it comes off the back of other romantic descriptions of how you both swiped right on Tinder. And this was while you were at a car launch for Jaguar, which, by the way, you should give some of us a spin in some of these fancy cars you drive.
I'm to Cape Town. I'll pick you up at the airport. Wait, I'm not sure. Schedule a nice car. Anyway, no, I don't think I should have said that. I mean, I can pick you up at the airport one day in a nice car. Why not?
Yeah, and I mean, go on.
That description, I was like almost being as kitsch, as cliched as everything, because our meeting was as kitsch and cliched as a slow motion Love Actually or one of those cheesy movies. And that was what was so compelling, I think, for both of us, because we both felt this enormous continental shift as our eyes locked, and we were soulmates from that moment on.
And I'm afraid that's not the only cheesy line in the book. I mean, there's another one where you have to depart when you're sort of together, and then you have to go back and you say, it was the saddest parting in the history of mankind. And I sat back thinking, seriously?
Really? You know what? One of my editors said, can we say it was one of the saddest days in the history of, and it was the saddest day. And I specifically did that over the top statement because that's how it felt for me.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. And then, I mean, it's also so strange that you know, we're talking about something so happy, and and I wanted to return to a theme or topic which is not that happy, but Thobeka is back with us, and hopefully for good this time, and hopefully she can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Oh,
I
great,
had to
Thobeka.
restart my router because
Okay.
yeah.
That's fine. I just read an extract where you start off describing yourself again in third person, and then you describe what happens when you meet Thobeka Yose, and that moment so tender and beautiful in the way in which it's described. Melinda says it was magical, almost like a fairy tale. But I wanted to give you an opportunity before time runs out and before technology doesn't play with us, to choose an extract which you think would resonate with readers or resonates with you, and tell us a little bit why.
Okay, I will go to page 97, The Young Widow's Hair. According to tradition, elderly women from both families were to accompany her to the river and cut her hair and let her bathe in cold running water. It is believed that when the husband passes on, there is a dark cloud hanging over you. Bathing in running water washes that darkness away. On Sunday morning, the day after the funeral, the women woke her up. She was told it was time to go to the river Ayokrek to cut the hair. Her hair was her heart was so heavy. She had no say in this. She was just a bruised woman who was scared something bad might happen to her if she did not comply. Not that not that the elderly women would harm her, but what if the ancestors did? She got up and dressed. After all, she was doing what this for her husband. She had to mourn him well, according to tradition, or what the elders wanted. But what about her? What did she want? I will stop here. The cutting of hair is very personal to us women. I Nobody wants anyone to just touch her head and cut her hair. I cut my hair now because I wanted to be like this. But when somebody just decides to cut your hair, it's an attack on you as a person. I felt attacked. I felt it felt like it was a punishment, like there was something I did for my husband. But then again, what comforted me was the fact that it if I'm doing it for him, because he was the love of my life, so I was okay-ish in doing it. But I do not wish that for anyone. I wish if you are to express any kind of tradition, it would be explained. It's still my wish even now to have the things that we call traditions as black people. There is no book, there's no reference. You are just told to do this because your grandmother did, it was done to that and to that person and that person. I wish to one day to write or to have someone write that book where everything that we call tradition, because sometimes I suspect abuse in the name of tradition. People will do things to you or force you to do things and hide behind tradition. So this it broke me as I was already broken, and I hated the fact that people were talking about me in front of me, that and wanting to do things to me and not inviting me in the conversation. It pains me to notice that it still happens now, even to women, especially rural women who have no voice whatsoever. So that's why I chose this extract.
Yeah, it also, I mean, a parallel with Melinda's is, you say quite explicitly, Tobeka, that too much is placed on the shoulders of a black woman. So much responsibility, so many
Mm.
burdens to carry. No one stood up for my mother. The one time my younger uncle attempted to beat the hell out of my father, it did not happen because my mother stopped it. Nobody, though, asked her how she was doing emotionally, except a therapist at the hospital. But she did not tell them because she was not programmed or raised like that to speak her mind, to pour her heart out. It was not our thing to do as black people, especially not of my mother's generation. So there were no platforms, no support of any kind available to you other than your family. And you go on a little later on saying, You can't actually, and I think both books do this and demonstrate this very clearly. Melinda, yours as well. You can't actually heal under the mask. Wounds need air to heal. That dirty laundry that we were told not to air needed to be aired so that healing could begin. You still think that that's the case, Thobeka?
Yeah, it still is the case. Women still have no voice, and we are encouraged to wear this facade. And I am hoping and praying for a day where all women, especially Black women, will be free, will know that it's not, you are not being a bad person when you speak up, and actually it heals. I remember when this book was about to come out in 2017, I got sick. I was attacked by a mild stroke, and I believe that it was because I was scared that I will be seen. I was too comfortable behind the mask, and I'm so glad that I fought, and the book is out now, and I have a voice, and my mom has a voice, and everyone knows who my mom is now, and that makes me hopeful that women will speak up. It doesn't matter if people say, "Oh, you've been saying this," or you've been screaming abuse, you've been saying this. We must speak up until the abuse stops.
Thank you very much. And we literally have a minute left. And I wanted to end on something a little happier, if not a little more esoteric. And I posed this question to Melinda a little bit earlier, but we didn't get to it, where she talks about being a Leo and Matt being a Virgo. And I asked her, do you think that kind of stuff determines your trajectory in some way or influences how you are? And you, Tobeka, do the same. Because when you're born, you say it was time to name the baby girl. She was named Iris. And then you go on to what these names mean in Greek mythology and so on. But what struck me is usually, and you speak a lot about what happens in Black communities and so on. And being a Black person, I thought it's strange that she's talking about numerology. In numerology, it is said that people with this name tend to be leaders and initiators with strong personalities. They're courageous and they are even aggressive at times. Is this true? Are you courageous? I mean, you're obviously very courageous, but are you aggressive? It doesn't seem so.
I surprise myself even. I am aggressive at times, and I think I think even writing this book was a way of showing my aggressiveness. I I'm rebellious, but in a very subtle way. I'm not loud, and I will shock you every time when I stand up for myself or speak up, or even my mom was shocked that I want to write a book. Why would you do that? Who has ever done that in our family? Why would you? So even that is starting a rebellion. So I am a rebellious person, and I think I I always shock myself even.
Well, I was
I sh-
shocked to read about numerology, but
I shock myself every time. I was talking to my cousin about my next project. I'm writing a book about menopause because it's showing me flames. And she's a health practitioner. She's a nurse. She was shocked that you would do that. Oh, you are bold. You Who does that? And I was like, I'm doing it. So I think I am.
I hope one of you would consider writing a book on menopause, not just menopause. yours. Melinda's, similar question to you around the sort of whole star sign thing. It crops up 2 or 3 times in the book.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a huge believer of like the horoscope, but I believe in the
Right.
elements of fire, wood, fire, earth, air, and water. And
Water.
I actually water. And so that was earth. I was fire. It was either a volcano or a complete like fire dead with all the mud all over the fire. So we had this kind of relationship that made sense kind of astrologically to me in some way.
And unfortunately, guys, on that note, we have gone literally 2.5 minutes over time, and I get messages about us having to end the conversation. It's been a great privilege for me to both have read the books and facilitated this discussion with the both of you. Congratulations, Thobeka, on the Canex Prize. And I'm so sorry that you dropped off. I can assure you that I did a fair bit of reading from your text, about a page and a half, and really enjoyed that very tender moment of when you met Jongikaya, and may his memory be blessed. And thank you very much for this privilege for me to chat to the two of you, and I hope we will do so again. And thanks for everyone who's tuned in to watch this. And I hope, Thobeka, we will have another occasion where technology will be our friend, or at least we can do this in person. So thank you very much,
I
and
would
thanks.
love that very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ebrahim. Thank you. Mel, love you.
Love you
Hugs.
too. Very proud of
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much.